The alarms had been screaming for 17 minutes. In a facility where silence was prized above all else, where lives were measured in micro-adjustments and steady pulses, the shrill, relentless sound felt like sacrilege. Dr. Elias Verne didn't flinch. He stood over the operating platform, gloved hands hovering just above a body that shouldn't have existed, at least not here. Vitals collapsing. The assistant drone chimed in a smooth, detached voice. Foreign physiology destabilizing. Probability of survival, 2.7%. Elias exhaled slowly. Then we're going to be the 2.7%, he muttered. The patient, if she could even be called that, was dying. Her name, as far as the translation algorithms had managed, was Lyrieth, a member of a species humanity had only encountered 2 months ago, during a chaotic and controversial first contact mission at the edge of mapped space. She wasn't human. She wasn't even close. Her skin shimmered faintly with a bioluminescent pattern that pulsed erratically now, like a dying constellation. Her limbs were longer, more delicate, her internal structures a complex weave of translucent organs and branching filaments that defied everything Elias had spent his life learning. And yet she was alive. Barely. She shouldn't be here, Commander Rains said from behind the observation barrier, his voice tense over the intercom. Doctor, this is a violation of at least 6 interspecies protocols. If the Coalition finds out, they'll what? Elias snapped, not looking up. Condemn her to death faster than she's already dying? Rains didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Lyrieth wasn't just an alien. She was a political liability. She had been found, shot, bleeding, barely conscious, on the edge of a disputed zone between human space and the territory of a powerful alien alliance, known as the Valkyrie Assembly. No one knew what she had been doing there. No one knew why she had been alone. But one thing was certain. If she died under human care, it would be seen as negligence. If she lived, it might be seen as interference. Either way, someone would pay for it. Doctor, the drone repeated, her circulatory system is failing. Unknown compound detected. Possibly a toxin. Elias leaned closer, eyes scanning the shifting holographic readouts. Not a toxin, he murmured. It's a cascade failure. Her own biology is shutting itself down. Cause? Trauma. Shock. And he paused, frowning. Incompatibility. With what? With us. He straightened slightly, mind racing. Lyrieth had been brought into a human medical facility, exposed to human standard atmosphere, microbes, radiation levels, everything. For a human, it was harmless. For her, it was poison. She's rejecting the environment, Elias said. Her systems are trying to adapt, but they can't keep up. Then we can't treat her, Rain said. We don't have the equipment to simulate her native conditions. Elias's jaw tightened. No, he said quietly, but I can try something else. The room fell silent as Elias made his decision. Prepare for direct interface, he said. The drone hesitated. Warning, cross-species neural integration is strictly prohibited under medical law. I'm aware, Elias cut in. Override the restriction. Authorization required. Elias reached up and pressed his palm against the biometric panel. Dr. Elias Verne, he said. Chief Surgeon. I accept full responsibility. There was a pause. Then the system chimed. Authorization granted. Behind the glass, Commander Rains swore under his breath. Elias, don't do this, he said. If something goes wrong. It already has, Elias replied. She's dying. And you might die with her. Elias allowed himself a faint, humorless smile. Occupational hazard. The interface rig descended from the ceiling, a lattice of fine, shimmering threads designed to connect directly to a patient's nervous system. It had been developed for the most delicate procedures, where no machine could interpret signals fast enough, and no AI could make decisions nuanced enough. It allowed a surgeon to feel the patient, to become, for a brief and dangerous moment, part of them. It had never been used on an alien. Begin synchronization, Elias said. The threads lowered, gently embedding themselves into Lyraeth's skin and into the ports along Elias's spine. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then,
Pain.
not his own. A flood of sensations slammed into him, alien and overwhelming. It was like being dropped into an ocean of light and fire, every nerve screaming in a language he didn't understand. He gasped, gripping the edge of the platform. "Doctor," the drone said. "Neural overload detected." "I'm fine," he hissed. "Just give me a second." He forced himself to breathe, to focus. Gradually, the chaos began to resolve into patterns. Lyraeth's body wasn't just failing. It was fighting. Her cells were collapsing and rebuilding, over and over, trying desperately to adapt to an environment that was killing her. And at the center of it all, her consciousness.
Faint.
Flickering. Terrified. Elias reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. Easy, he thought, not knowing if she could understand. "I'm here." For a moment there was nothing. Then, a whisper. Not in words. In feeling.
Fear. Pain.
And something else.
Hope.
Stabilizing, the drone reported. Neural coherence increasing. Elias barely heard it. He was inside her system now, navigating a landscape that defied every rule of human biology. Her circulatory system wasn't a simple network of vessels. It was a shifting web of energy channels, pulsing with bioluminescent currents. Her organs weren't fixed structures. They flowed, reconfiguring themselves in response to stimuli. And right now they were in chaos. "We need to give her something stable," Elias murmured. "Something her body can anchor to." "But we don't know her baseline," the drone said. Elias closed his eyes. "Then we'll have to build one." Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning as Elias worked. He adjusted chemical balances, guided cellular responses, and used his own neural signals as a template, carefully, cautiously, offering just enough structure for Lyraeth's body to mimic without overwhelming it. It was like teaching a drowning person how to swim while drowning alongside them. Several times, he nearly lost her. Several times, he nearly lost himself. "Doctor," the drone said at one point, its voice unusually urgent. "Your vital signs are deteriorating. You need to disconnect." "Not yet," Elias whispered. "You may not survive. She won't survive if I stop." There was a pause. Then, quietly, understood. Inside the shared space of their minds, something shifted. Lyraeth's presence, once faint and fragmented, grew stronger, more defined. She reached back, not physically, but unmistakably. Elias felt it like a hand closing around his. A connection. A question.
Why?
He didn't have an answer she would understand. So he gave her the simplest truth he had. "Because you're alive." There was a long silence. Then a flicker of something like warmth. "Vital stabilizing," the drone announced. Commander Rains leaned forward, eyes wide. "Is that impossible?" one of the observing officers whispered. But it wasn't. Lyraeth's bioluminescent patterns, once chaotic, were beginning to settle into a steady rhythm. Her systems were aligning, adapting, surviving. Elias felt it too. The moment her body stopped fighting itself. The moment it chose life. He sagged slightly, exhaustion crashing over him. "We did it," he breathed. But the connection didn't fade. If anything, it deepened. Lyraeth's presence filled his mind, not overwhelming, but present.
Aware.
And now, for the first time, clear. You stayed, she conveyed. Elias swallowed. Yeah, he said softly. I stayed. Another pause. Then, you risked everything. He let out a tired laugh. Comes with the job. That wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. When the interface finally disengaged, Elias nearly collapsed. Strong hands caught him, Commander Rains, pulling him back from the platform. You idiot, Rains muttered, though there was no real anger in it. You actually did it. Elias managed a weak smile. Yeah, he said. I guess I did. Behind them, the drone continued its steady monitoring. Patient condition, stable, it reported. Recovery prognosis, favorable. The room erupted into stunned murmurs. But Elias only had eyes for the figure on the platform. Lyreth.
Alive.
She woke 3 hours later. The room had been dimmed, the chaos replaced by a quiet, almost reverent stillness. Elias sat nearby, pale and exhausted, but awake, watching, waiting. Her eyes opened slowly. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, fractals of light and color, shifting with each subtle movement. They settled on him. Recognition flickered. You, she said, not aloud, but directly into his mind. Elias blinked. Hey, he said softly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she tried to sit up and winced. Easy, Elias said, moving closer. You're still recovering. She stilled, studying him. This form is fragile, she observed. Elias chuckled. You get used to it. Another pause. Then, why did you help me? The question again. He considered it more carefully this time. Because it was the right thing to do, he said. Because you needed help. Because he hesitated. Because that's what we do. She tilted her head slightly. What you do? Humans, he said. We try to help. Even when it's risky. Even when it doesn't make sense. Her gaze didn't waver. Even when it could harm you. Elias met her eyes. Especially then. Word spread quickly. Too quickly. Within hours, the facility was flooded with communications from Earth, from the Coalition, and, most alarmingly, from the Valkyrie Assembly. They wanted answers. They wanted explanations. And some of them wanted consequences. Commander Rains stood in the command room, staring at the incoming messages. This is going to get ugly, he said. Elias, now on his feet but still unsteady, leaned against the wall. Yeah, he said. Probably. Rains glanced at him. Was it worth it? Elias didn't hesitate. Yes. 2 days later, the Valkyrie arrived. Their ships were unlike anything human engineers had ever seen, sleek, organic, and impossibly vast. They didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They simply waited. A delegation was sent, and, at their center, Lyreth, fully recovered, standing tall.
Alive.
The meeting was tense. Human officials sat across from the Valkyrie representatives, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Elias stood off to the side, unsure if he was about to be commended or condemned. Lyreth stepped forward. She looked different now, not just physically, but in the way she carried herself. Stronger.
Certain.
She spoke in her own language, a cascade of tones and harmonics that filled the room. Then, through the translation system, this. Humans saved my life. A murmur rippled through both sides. He acted without permission, one Valkyrie official said. He interfered with a process he did not understand. Lyreth turned to them. And yet, I live. Silence. She continued. He entered my mind. He shared my pain. He gave of himself when there was no guarantee of success. Her gaze shifted to Elias. And he did not stop. Elias felt a strange tightness in his chest. He is reckless, another official said. Lyreth tilted her head slightly. Perhaps, she said. But if this is recklessness, then it is a quality worth understanding. The tension broke, not with conflict, but with something far more unexpected.
Curiosity.
Questions replaced accusations. Dialogue replaced demands. And slowly, cautiously, something like respect began to form. Later, as the delegations dispersed, Lyreth approached Elias. You have altered more than my survival, she said. Elias raised an eyebrow. Yeah. She nodded. My people, we value precision. Control. We do not act without certainty. And now, she studied him. Now, we wonder what might be possible if we did. Elias smiled faintly. Careful, he said. That's a slippery slope. Her eyes shimmered. I know, she conveyed, the hint of something like amusement in her tone. Then, more seriously, you risked everything for me. Elias shrugged. Like I said, comes with the job. She stepped closer. Then perhaps it is time we learn more about your kind. As the Valkyrie ships departed, carrying Lyreth back to her people, Elias stood on the observation deck. Commander Rains joined him. You realize, Rains said, this could change everything. Elias nodded. Yeah, he said. I know. Rains glanced at him. All because you couldn't let one patient die. Elias watched the ships disappear into the stars. Not just a patient, he said quietly. A person. Somewhere, far beyond human space, Lyreth stood among her own kind. She felt the echo of that connection still, a faint, persistent thread linking her to the human who had refused to let her die. Her people asked her what humans were like. She considered the question carefully. Then she answered, They are fragile, she said. They are reckless. They do not always understand the consequences of their actions. A pause. Then, but when they choose to save a life, her bioluminescent patterns flared softly. They will risk everything. And for the first time in generations, the Valkyrie Assembly began to look toward humanity, not with suspicion, but with wonder. The stars didn't look the same anymore. Dr. Elias Verne had spent most of his life beneath them, studying, traveling, surviving, but for the first time, he felt like they were watching back. Not in fear, not in judgment, but in quiet anticipation. The events that followed Lyreth's recovery didn't explode into chaos the way many had feared. They unfolded slowly, deliberately, like something fragile being tested for the first time. 3 weeks after the Valkyrie delegation departed, Elias found himself sitting in a room far less forgiving than an operating theater. The tribunal chamber.
Cold. Silent.
Merciless. A semicircle of officials, human and non-human alike, watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disapproval. Commander Rains stood behind him, arms crossed, jaw tight. This hearing, the presiding official began, is to determine whether Dr. Elias Verne violated interspecies law, endangered diplomatic stability, and engaged in unauthorized biological interference. Elias didn't respond. He already knew the answer.
Yes.
Yes, he said calmly. A ripple of murmurs spread across the chamber. You admit to all charges? I do. Rains shifted slightly, clearly uncomfortable, but he said nothing. The presiding official leaned forward. And yet the patient survived. Elias met their gaze. She did. Another pause. And you would do it again? Elias didn't hesitate. Yes. This time, the silence was heavier. Not shocked. Measured. Evaluating. What you did, one of the coalition representatives said, was reckless beyond reason. Elias nodded slightly. I agree. And yet, another added, it has resulted in unprecedented diplomatic progress. That was the strange part. No one had expected that.
Not even Elias.
The Valkyrie assembly, once distant, rigid, and almost cold in their interactions, had changed their tone. They weren't just communicating. They were engaging. They had sent data, medical data, biological frameworks, even fragments of their neural interface technologies, far more advanced than anything humans possessed, all labeled under a single classification: reciprocal exchange. You altered the trajectory of two civilizations, the presiding official said. Elias shook his head. No, he said quietly. I just refuse to let someone die. A long pause followed. Then, unexpectedly, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. An incoming transmission. All eyes turned toward the central display as it flickered to life. And there she was, Lyrieth. She stood taller than before, her bioluminescent patterns glowing with a steady, controlled brilliance. Behind her, faint outlines of other Valkyrie could be seen, watching, observing, learning. I request to speak, she said through the translator. The presiding official hesitated only a moment. Granted. Lyrieth stepped forward. This human stands accused of violating law, she said.
Her voice was calm, precise.
But your laws did not account for me. A subtle shift passed through the room. I was dying, she continued. Not because of conflict, not because of intent, but because your systems could not sustain mine. Her gaze sharpened slightly. And yet he tried. Elias looked down, uncomfortable with the attention. He did not understand my biology, she said. He did not know if his actions would succeed. He knew only one thing. Her eyes met his. That I was alive. The chamber was silent.
Completely.
He entered my mind, she said. He endured pain that was not his. He risked the dissolution of his own neural identity to preserve mine. A faint murmur spread among the non-human delegates. Even among advanced species, such acts were rare. Among my people, Lyrieth continued, we do not act without certainty. We do not risk ourselves without calculated outcome.
She paused.
Yet, because of him, I stand here. Her bioluminescent patterns pulse softly. And, because I stand here, we now speak. The presiding official leaned back slightly. You are suggesting, they said carefully, that his actions justify the violation of established law? Lyrieth tilted her head. I am suggesting, she replied, that your laws are incomplete. That landed harder than any accusation. You have rules to prevent harm, she continued. But what of rules that prevent compassion? No one answered, because no one had a good answer. After a long silence, the transmission faded, but the weight of her words remained. The chamber no longer felt cold. It felt uncertain. Deliberations lasted for hours. Elias sat quietly through all of it, hands folded, expression calm. He wasn't thinking about the verdict. He wasn't thinking about punishment. He was thinking about a moment. A single moment, when he had felt Lyrieth's fear and chosen to act anyway. And he knew, deep down, no matter what they decided, he wouldn't change that choice. When the officials finally returned, the room straightened instinctively. The presiding figure looked at Elias. Dr. Verne, they said, your actions did violate established protocols. Elias nodded. However, a pause. Given the unprecedented outcome of your intervention and the subsequent diplomatic developments. Another pause. You are hereby absolved of criminal liability. A collective exhale swept the room. Commander Rains let out a quiet breath behind him. Elias blinked. That's it, he asked. The official almost smiled. Not quite. Elias went slightly. Here it comes. You are also being reassigned. That caught him off guard. To what? The official gestured toward the central display. A new symbol appeared, one Elias didn't recognize. A merging of human and Valkyrie design. A joint medical initiative, they explained. A collaborative effort between our species. Elias frowned. And you want me where exactly? The answer came immediately. At the center of it. The facility was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Built in orbit between human and Valkyrie space, it wasn't fully one or the other. It was both. And neither. Organic structures intertwined with human engineering. Soft, glowing corridors blended seamlessly with clean metallic surfaces. And, at its heart, a new kind of operating theater, designed not just for humans, not just for Valkyrie, but for everyone. Elias stood at the observation window, arms folded, taking it all in. You look like you're thinking too hard again. He turned. Lyreth stood behind him, stronger than ever. Her presence no longer fragile, but commanding. Occupational habit, Elias said with a faint smile. She stepped beside him, looking out at the facility. This place should not exist, she said. Elias chuckled. Yeah, he said. I've heard that before. She glanced at him. And yet it does. A quiet moment passed between them. Then she spoke again. My people have begun adapting your methods. Elias raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. It is, she admitted. We are not accustomed to uncertainty. And humans are a little too comfortable with it. Her bioluminescence flickered amusement. Yes. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. Elias blinked. Regret what? Your decision, she said. To save me. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out at the stars again, at the place where it had all started. Then he shook his head. No, he said. Not even a little. Lyreth studied him. You are aware, she said, that your actions have made you significant. Elias groaned slightly. I was hoping to avoid that. You cannot, she said simply. Great. Another pause. Then more softly. You have also made something else possible. Elias glanced at her. What's that? She met his gaze. Trust. The first joint operation was scheduled only days later. A patient, neither human nor Valkyrie, was brought in from a distant system. Complex injuries. Unknown physiology. Unstable. The kind of case that would have been impossible just weeks ago. Now? Elias stood at the center of the operating platform. Human tools in one hand, Valkyrie interface systems in the other. Lyreth beside him. Ready. Let's not make this a habit, he muttered. She tilted her head. Why? He smirked. Because apparently I break laws when I do this. Her glow brightened slightly. Then perhaps, she said, we should write better ones. Elias chuckled. Yeah, he said. Maybe we should. As the procedure began, the room filled with quiet focus. Two species. Two ways of understanding life. Working as one. And somewhere, deep in the shared silence of that moment, a new future took its first breath. Far beyond the facility, among the stars, the Valkyrie assembly watched. And so did humanity. What had begun as a single, reckless act, a human refusing to let an alien die, had become something far greater. A bridge, a question, a possibility. And if anyone, years later, asked where it all began, they would not point to treaties, or alliances, or politics. They would point to a single moment, a dying patient, a human surgeon, and a choice. Because when humans choose to save a life, they don't just change one fate. They change everything.